In this training session, we're going to dive into some Stoic philosophy and how you can show up in the world as a better man. What's going on, guys? My name is Dr. Dave. This is the Unbreakable Man training session. In this training session, we're going to be using some Stoicism. I love Stoicism because it gives me the guide, some protocols to show up in the world as a better man, be my best self, do my best work, and ultimately live my best life. One of my favorite philosophers, you can even call him more of an emperor, is Marcus Aurelius. He has a book called Meditations, a book I really enjoy. Not to say that Stoicism is the only philosophy, but it gives us good protocols. It has so much wisdom, so much depth in Stoicism on how to show up in this world, how to not take meaning from the world, but simply to just be in the world and do our work from that space. So let me read you the quote here from the old interwebs. It reads, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." That'd be Marcus Aurelius in his book Meditations. So let's unpack that. There is so much wisdom in this, because when I started on my journey as a man, as a better man, as I'm going to be the best man I possibly can be, show up in the world as I can, the best way I possibly can, I was a shell of a man. I was nothing compared to what I am now. It's sort of the same way if you show up in the world or in the gym and you go to the gym and you say, oh man, I got to lift all this weight. Well, you're not adapted yet. You're not adapted to the stress of that situation. So your mind and your body, your emotions are not going to be up to the same challenge that you otherwise can handle now if you've been working out for an extended period of time. So starting there, let's unpack that quote. As you go on your journey, you're going to realize that there are going to be situations that will challenge you. Those challenges are always your perspective of the challenge itself. I'll give you a perfect example. I know men out there that if you took away everything they had, they'd be like, great, I'll just rebuild. Awesome. In fact, Thomas Edison did that when his barn burned down. This is a story that I read in a book about his barn burning down. And instead of him being pissed, losing all of his life's work, he grabbed his son and said, hey, come look at this. This is the greatest fire you'll ever see. Isn't it amazing? And you're probably thinking, what? Like, that's a weird story. That's a weird thing for somebody to say because they're losing their life's work in a moment. But in reality, like, we're all just out there, we're just rediscovering. In fact, I lost my hard drive once, and I was like, great, I get to make more content. This is awesome. Even if my entire YouTube channel, all my podcasts, or any of that stuff, if all that just went away, like, that would be great. Time to create more, time to give more, time to do more. Now, again, that's a perspective. And for other situations, like if my wife left me today, I'd be like, wow, what the, wow. Because again, it's the meaning we put to it. So that is the most important thing to this quote, is that you don't have to make it something. You don't have to, like anything in life, you are not this life. You are not this thought. You are not this emotion. It's the meaning you put to those things that gives you the heartache, that gives you the anxiety, that gives you the depression. It's the meaning you put to those things. Here's the deal. In life, you will have loss, period. You will have loss. You will lose, at times, you will lose jobs, you will lose finances, you will lose loved ones, you will lose yourself at times. You won't even be yourself in certain situations. Have you ever had a panic attack? Yeah, you're not even yourself in that situation, right? So you will lose. There is loss. That's part of life. Embrace that. But it is in the meaning you put to the loss, thinking that I am losing something here. I got to hold on. Well, when you say that to yourself, that's the meaning you put to it. Oh, I'm losing? No. You're gaining. Out of loss always comes new life. Always, because that's on the other end of it. That's the yin and the yang. That's the entropy and the enthalpy. That's what I talk about in all of my programs. Entropy and enthalpy, that's the cycle of life. The cycle of life and death is entropy and enthalpy, period. That's the physics of it, the nature of it. You have to breathe, you have to eat. there will always be loss. There will always be something going away from you. But it is the meaning you put to it that you create the situation. You perceive it as, oh, this is bad, but it doesn't have to be. So here's how to really dive into the meaning. Now, anytime there's a situation out there, I always start with situation. You look at it as is, take a step out of it. I actually like to use a quick visualization as if I'm looking at like an iPad, and I'm like looking at my own life. And so I use that visualization. So I use a little visualization, like I'm looking at my own life on an iPad. And then I ask myself, what meaning, what belief do I have about this situation? So what meaning are you giving that situation specifically? Because once you know the meaning you're giving it, then you can start to alter that. Now, ultimately, again, there's always going to be loss, so you know that there will be suffering. That's why I love the Buddhist philosophy, all of life is suffering, because it is. All of life is loss. That doesn't mean that you're only losing. It's always going in a cycle. All of life is suffering. What a beautiful thought. When you chew on that, you start to, oh, okay, if all of life is suffering, if I can set myself up for success and suffer for another, then maybe there's meaning in my suffering. Because if you can put meaning to the suffering, that the work you're doing right now is actually improving the life of another in the future, or even yourself in the future, now something special happens. So there's not loss, in fact, there's actually gain. So let's say, for instance, you sacrifice your finances and you push yourself long hours and you're eating beans and rice so that your child can go to college and their college is paid for, well, that puts meaning to your suffering. Even if you're in depression right now and you feel depressed and you feel anxious, if you're in depression right now, well, guess what? You're learning what depression feels like so that when somebody else comes by and they're depressed, that you have the context to give them. That's what gives you the authority, just by living the life, by getting punched in the face every once in a while. That is the meaning that you can give to this situation, ultimately allowing you to not only feel fulfilled, feel satisfied, but knowing that there is meaning in your suffering. And that's the beauty of it. That's what Viktor Frankl tells us in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. It's not the house and the cars and the kids. It's all of life is suffering. We're always going to suffer. It's the meaning you put to it. Again, you're helping another. By your suffering, it's giving opportunity for another to not experience the same suffering. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's what that quote means. Again, you don't have to make it anything. Situations will always arise for you. There will always be loss. There will always be entropy. But you don't have to make it something, right? Whether it be a car accident or a loss of a loved one or a loss of a business or a loss of a house or whatever, you don't have to make that situation into something. Give yourself the opportunity. It doesn't mean that it isn't as painful. There will always be suffering. But just realize that and then give yourself the space to say, okay, how is this going to be of benefit to my future self and others around me? Because again, we're all moving in the same planet together. We're all helping each other. So use this philosophy, apply this to your world, apply this to your life so that you can show up in the world as your best self, do your best work, ultimately live your best life. Guys, this was an amazing training session. Thank you so much for being here. Share this information with more men who can apply this into their life. What a beautiful lesson this was. Guys, I love you. This was amazing. I will see you out there in the next training session. Have an awesome day. Peace.